Mr. Mayor, if I may, there was a bank robbery at Center State Bank, and the police department is in the process of capturing the person involved in that, hopefully.
Well, please don't bring him
You know
here.
how efficient they are, but just in case anyone sees police cars or something like that, that's what the deal is.
Okay. David, you don't seem to be too worried about this development.
It's under control.
He's got his best on it.
Okay, that moves us to number 4, public hearings, 4A1, and I will read the ordinance. An ordinance of the city, or the title of the ordinance, an ordinance of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, amending Section 60-11 of Title 6 Zone Ordinance, the Code of the City of Vero Beach, relating to compliance with zoning ordinance, providing for penalties for noncompliance, providing for conflict and severability, providing for codification, providing for an effective date, requested by the Planning and Development Director. This is the final hearing, I believe. Staff comment, please.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the record, I'm Tim McGarry, Director of Planning and Development. I'll just briefly go over this. This establishes a special $500 citation, civil penalty for unlawful uses in zoning districts. And, of course, that covers everything, including vacation rentals, which are prohibited in our residential zoning districts. So unless you have some questions of me, I would suggest we open it up to the public.
All right, ma'am, would you like to come forward? This is the appropriate time.
On behalf of my association, I would like to say that we agree that there needs to be, rules and guidelines, just like in any industry. I mean, there's problems in every industry, whether it's restaurants or you name it. What we would like to propose is that there be a 7-day minimum for vacation rentals, because that's when young families come down in the summertime. It's the only time. Basically, to do anything other than that is going to put everybody out of business, and I don't think that you want the repercussion of what it's going to do to tourism here and the dollars it brings into the community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Further public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Further council discussion, or?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I would like to discuss possibly considering delaying the effective date, just to try to help these owners that already have had commitments out to these renters, that we give them, possibly a 3-month window on existing rentals.
We can certainly talk about that, but I'll point out to you they've been breaking the law, pure and simple.
Well, I've been talking about this, and I guess I've been talking with Tim and Wayne on a compliance plan. But I mean, this is something that if we passed, we could just agree to a compliance plan that we do give them 3 months to ramp down and get out of the business. The advantage of going with a compliance plan is that then they lose the ability to file a lawsuit against us, which may be very advantageous for us.
How would you do that in this particular procedure?
Mr.
Yes, and I just want you to know they're going to be running fines now, so it isn't like they're not going to have fines. Normally, a compliance agreement, we use that because we're generally trying to bring people in compliance, not punish people. And my suggestion would be that we could, using a compliance agreement, which I signed, that sets up specific dates which they have to end whatever the violation, bring it into compliance. And that could be done on a case-by-case basis, depending on what information is provided, so it isn't just an open-ended ability to continue to violate the rules and regulations of the city. So, I mean, but right now we're operating on no compliance agreement, so on this violation. So I will accept any direction from the council.
Well, and all you to do what Mr. Kramer wants, all you need is a consensus of the council, right? I mean, you have that authority now.
Yeah, sort of I have the authority. authority. I and the police chief are kind of working together, but I would do the compliance agreements probably, since I've done them in the past.
If I could explain how it works, it is in the code now, and what it is basically, they have to admit that they're in violation, and they agree to correct the violation, and whatever the direction of the council would be on how much time the enforcement arm of the city would give them to bring it into compliance is obviously what they would go with. But it is an agreement they signed admitting the violation. They waive the right to a hearing, and they agree that if they haven't come into compliance by the date certain, which can be extended for a reasonable amount of time if they're making progress, then basically all the penalties come into effect, and it goes to the code board for enforcement.
Wayne, tell me, if a person has a short-term rental property here and has got a contract with somebody outside, and we change the laws, are they liable, or who's?
Well, keep in mind that Tim would have to verify this activity has been illegal since probably at least 1986. I mean, that was the
we're
last.
not changing the law.
We're just changing the
It's
fine.
never changed. It's always been a prohibited activity in residential
the fine.
neighborhoods.
Okay,
And
and
this
I-
is just the enforcement is being
Enforcement, yeah.
stiffened
Okay,
is
excuse
the
me.
main thing.
Right. In the past, we just did by complaint basis only, but over the last few years, things ratcheted up when I had one of our former city council members involved in that, and so it came to the attention of a lot of people. Before that, we had only had 2 or 3 complaints to this office, and we answered.
I think
responded.
that's, we have technology which makes this easier. That's been building. And I think before, as one person stated, the realtor said, oh, well, it's against the law, but it's not enforced. And so now we're choosing to enforce it, which is bringing it to attention that it didn't have before.
That's true. I mean, we're due on your direction, and we did a comprehensive enforcement, and that's what's being done right now, and that's why you see so many. I think we're up over 30, some up to 40.
It was 46 this morning, but I
46,
think
there we go.
Just told we did another one.
Okay.
Mr. Kramer, would it be appropriate that if your suggestion is taken, which seems to me to be a good one, a wise one, that any agreement over 30 days be, revealed to the code enforcement board, or otherwise, I don't think we have to deal with them, but I don't want this to go on.
Well, the whole point is that it has been going on, whether or not we support it or not. But it has been going on. People have gotten themselves into a situation where it can be financially detrimental to them. We're not looking to really hurt the people financially on this. We're looking for compliance. We're giving them a window that if they come into a compliance plan and put themselves on the radar, that in 3 months or so they're done. We want this to be done. We want people in compliance. We're not actually looking to beat them over the head with it.
I don't have any problem with that, but how about the 3 months being an absolute?
Well, I think that's direction to staff. If you think that's
If you give
appropriate.
me a maximum 3 months, that's what we'll set it at. With the understanding that nobody has got 2 months worth and they can try to get another month out of it. No, we'll ask for some papers and stuff to show that they're booked or whatever through that period of time. And we know there are some that are going for that.
Mr. Old, what do you think?
Yep, I agree. The 3 months sounds good to me. Yeah.
Yeah, you could look at this as a form of short-term amnesty to bring your property and your activities into compliance.
Don't use the word amnesty.
Yeah, I know.
Well, we could use the term
But
amortization.
Amortization, yes. But it is done in other, especially when new laws are enacted. This not even really being a new law, but it is really stiffening the penalty.
Yeah.
Okay, now, everybody needs to understand, if they sign this compliance, that's admission of violation of city code. And so therefore, at the end of 90 days, on that 91st day, we have issues.
That's correct. If they're
And
still in
then we will
violation.
take that compliance agreement to wherever where
Right.
they've acknowledged the violations.
And basically, it then goes to the Code Enforcement Board for an order to be issued, and the board would enforce it.
And I think the police chief needs to address it a little bit
Yes.
too, since his folks are sort of working in his.
Yeah.
Yes, good morning once again.
morning.
Just a few things to add from our standpoint. We made contact with 2 homes this morning even, and cited 2. and one of the individuals said she had booked 8 months ago, just to give you that information, that background. And we're also seeing some compliance already as well when we go to some of the websites where before a homeowner or a realtor or a management service was renting for a week or less than 30 days, we're seeing some of those places now comply and saying 30 days or more, and if we even follow up, they reiterate that. So some are starting to comply, even as far as advertisement goes as well. But we are running into the ones, some of the ones we're running into now with regard to the citations are most likely ones that have booked a while back, just to give you that information.
Thank you.
Ms. Graves, you're okay with that?
I am. I don't want people to be punished. The intent is to improve the integrity of our neighborhoods and keep single residential family homes that way. I want to help people do what they can do, but at the same time, we can't put our neighborhoods in jeopardy.
So it's 90 days from
Today.
From the date that they get, the date that Tim sets with them, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
All right, any further comment on that? That's not a modification, it's just direction. So are we ready to vote on this? Does someone want to?
Mayor, if Dr. Conway came in, I didn't know if I know you closed the public hearing, but he was a little late. I didn't know if he wanted to speak.
Yes, I do.
All right,
if you
Dr.
don't mind.
Conley, come forward, please.
I just recognize him from being here before.
My apologies, Mr. Chairman. I just found out about this meeting 15 minutes ago and rushed over from the beach. My name is Miles Conway. I'm a 22-year resident in Indian River County. My practice is here and my home is here. And
Where's your home? Is it in the city or?
No, I'm in unincorporated Indian River County. But Mr. Mayor, the reason that I rushed down here today to praise all of you. In fact, the stand that you have taken on this, I think, has precedent beyond the City of Vero Beach. And in fact, if there was a document today that would allow us the south part of the county to annex into the City of Vero Beach, I would sign it right on the spot. And in fact, the position that you have taken on this curse of these vacation rentals, I would actually, if protocol and decorum permitted me, I'd come over onto that side of the podium and give you all a hug and Ms. Turner a kiss on the cheek for what you're about to do. Okay. With those issues and niceties out, I would just like to give you a perspective because, as I say, I think what you're about to do here today and the position that you have taken in imposing this 30-day restriction sets the tone and sets the standard for us to reclaim the quality of our life in our neighbourhoods. At the kind invitation of Representative Debbie Mayfield in December, I got up in this very room and made a presentation to the Florida legislative delegation and, in fact, chided them to certain aspects. Particularly, you hear these stories all the time, these romantic notions about the positive multiplier and economic impact of, I'm renting out my house and I get these Europeans into the neighborhood and they spend money in Indian River County. That's the glamorous aspect of the positive side. However, the other side of the equation doesn't come into play. I have a 1.8 acre piece of oceanfront estate that, as I said, I've lived there for 22 years in Indian River County, just near the county line, right next to Round Island Park. Just to the north of me, Dr. Thomas Gilman, a dentist that's lived in Indian River County for the last 16 years, has a 0.7 acre lot. To the north of him, Dr. Walter Foreman has a 0.7 acre lot. He's a radiologist. He's been here since 1978. Collectively, as a result of these, you call them vacation rentals, that's another little euphemistic. They are transient boarding houses. Let's call a spade a spade. You have transients that come in, they board for a couple of days, and they are gone. And in fact, when I was here before and I presented to the Florida delegation, I cited the incidents of the experiences that the city of Carmel in California had gone through 20 years ago. And they had looked at the social aspect of this, as did the California Supreme Court, and they said at the end of the day when these transients leave, they leave a negative impact, not a positive impact on those communities. Specifically in our case, as a result of these transient rentals in our neighborhood, the 20-car parking in a quiet little neighborhood, the dragging of kayaks the size of this podium across another piece of property because they don't have access to the beach, the transient trespassing, the garbage, 15 bags of garbage laying out on A1A. They don't even pay the garbage fee to pick it up, and they're gone back to Virginia, New Jersey, and Michigan. All of these deleterious impacts, vandalization of cameras. Sheriff Lower came. I also happen to be the secretary of the South Beach Property Homeowners Association, and we have got a meeting scheduled early May to go before the Indian River County Board of Commissioners and give them hell about this. The amount of crime that has increased, the concomitant crime that is increased in terms of the trespassing, vandalism, are all correlated to these transient boarding houses, and there's an increase. In fact, if you go and have a look at the Indian River County Sheriff's Facebook page, just 2 days ago, two homeowners, a neurologist, had his house completely ransacked while he was out, and the police, both St. Lucie and Indian River County, are investigating this at the moment. There was a transient boarding house right next door, and they are trying to see if we've had just another Dahlia Lane incident on the south part of our former pristine situation. The point that I'm making, as a result of all of this, we got the Indian River County Property Appraiser's Office to come in and take a look at our trim notices and say, okay, I'm homesteaded, my property appraisal is X, take a look at all of these criteria. Essentially, what we have is a residential dormitory, traditional residential neighborhood that now has a commercial operation, a de facto commercial motel operating on our doorstep. And in fact, a mile up the road, there's a gentleman that owns a 1-acre piece of property, and he runs a wedding reception center, and he parks 50 cars with a valet service all the way up A1A, and no enforcement has done about this at all. So all of these factors we presented to the Property Appraiser's Office. And as a result of this, they lowered our values of our 3 properties by 40%, or $2.4 million. And Mr. Comment has the presentation that I gave to the Florida legislation about this. The net result of this is that the Indian River County lost $18,000 in property taxes, 75% of it going to the school fund, as a result of this depreciation of the negative impact of transient rentals operating in bona fide residential neighborhoods. So that's the other side of the financial equation. The other aspect of this is I hear all of these individuals coming here and saying, oh, there's a fantastic multiplier effect of, yes, I rent out, these Europeans come here and they spend. The irony of this, particularly in the part of southern portion of Indian River County, is that they don't spend it in Indian River County. They go into Fort Pierce and spend it into St. Lucie County because the prices are more reasonable, etc., and that's a closer proximity. In none of these instances have I ever heard once that we've had a professional economist or some kind of economist come before any of these committees and say, this is the elasticity of occupancy as a result of these transient rentals. This is the negative elasticity in capacity rates and filling up of our bona fide, our hotels, etc., etc. Not one instant. This is all anecdotal, subjective information in throwing out numbers. I just happen to be a professional economist that's practiced for 35 years, so I know what goes on when we have a look at microeconomic demographic analysis, and this has never been presented in one instance. The other side of this is that at the moorings the other day, we had our annual general meeting. At our annual general meeting, Sheriff Lower showed up, and he gave a presentation about the burglaries, etc., and the crime that's been occurring in Round Island Park. A very nice lady, just like a very nice gentleman that I saw on the internet that prompted me to get my rear down here very, very quickly, had the same argument that, oh, my husband died a couple of years ago. I have a rental in the moorings. I've been renting this out for so long, etc., etc. It helps me balance my personal financial balance sheet. Mr. David Hunter, who's probably addressed you many, many times, is a member of the Indian River County Homeowners Association, got up and asked the question. He said, "Madam, do you have a state license to be operating your transient business rental?" She says, "What is that?" And she's in the moorings. So there's an aspect that there's a fallacious argument all the time that these positive economic impacts on the county are neither verified nor justified or analytically proven. And in most of these instances, particularly up in Ampersand Beach, which is in the northern part of the county, they don't register for the sales tax. They don't register for the bed tax. They land up pocketing them themselves. We have a situation up in Ampersand Beach with 3 instances of where you have property owners that are homesteaded, and they are renting out their properties on a daily basis as vacation rentals. And what they do is they go under Mr. McGarry's radar and Mr. DeBlois' radar and Mr. Bowling's radar because they don't advertise on the vacation rental by owner. They're in upstate New York. They put advertisements into the local little newspapers. "I got a great place down in Vero, cut price, etc., better for a cash deal." And none of this positive economic impact, you ever see it. So the deleterious and negative effects, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, far outweigh any of the economic impacts. Further to this county, this city and the Indian River County are not welfare organizations. You should not be setting policy to balance the personal financial impact of balance sheet of individual citizens. That is their personal responsibility. We are somewhat of a conservative property rights institution and county voting, right-wing Republican, Tea Party, etc. God help us, etc. Part of that is it's a selective argument. We always argue for positive property rights, and I agree with this gentleman. He has his own personal property rights. However, ladies and gentlemen, personal, individual, profit-making property rights do not transcend the personal, quiet enjoyment property rights of your neighbours. That is the e-all and end-all of that subject. Gentlemen, please not only vote in favour of these fines and enforcing your regulations, tighten them up and double the fines.
You know what, Doctor? It was a historical accident that the moorings and the South Beach is not part of the city. We open our arms. If there's a petition, we'd love to have you.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, you know, I appreciate the humour of it, and if this wasn't gallows humour and I wasn't so riled up about this argument, I would appreciate it a lot more. I have already warned the Board of County Commissioners, Commissioner Davis, Commissioner O'Brien's, Commissioner Solari, who all voted in 2012 to make this little change to not constitute or recognise they had the same legal language problem in their code, that they gave an exception or an exemption to private dwelling houses less than 30 days are not considered hotels or motels and therefore are exempt from operating in residential neighbourhoods. That was the nice little one under the table while I was out the country. Okay, the point that I'm making is that your actions are actually a double-edged sword for us in unincorporated county, because these profiteers and these opportunists are going to see the example, the fine example of quality of life example that you are setting and continue to set, and they're going to close up shop in the city of Vero Beach and move towards us. Because we have an open house, we have an open invitation. Come bring your motel into our neighbourhood, we won't touch you. And I could spend the next half an hour.
No, please don't.
It's a bad presentation here of everything that I've said narratively in pictures. I won't do that. But as I said to you, Mr. Winger, if you had an annexation document for me to sign to get into the city of Vero Beach, I would sign it. I get your sewer, I get your water, I get your
police,
expensive electricity.
You get David Curry.
Okay, the only thing I don't get from you is the fire department at St. Ed's and the sheriff's department. In fact, we see more of St. Lucie County sheriffs making their turn on North Beach than we do of Indian River County.
Thanks for your comment.
Please uphold this regulation.
Well, with that, I'll make a motion to adopt this ordinance. Is there a second?
Second.
It has to be roll call unless there's further comment.
Mr. Old?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Winger?
Yes, with pleasure.
Do we need a second vote on the compliance, or that's
No,
we're
we
just gonna do
will
that?
take direction
Okay.
on
We've got that.
All right.
Good point, though. Okay, now we go to A2, an ordinance of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, amending Section 78-63 and 78-83 in Chapter 78 of the Code of the City of Vero Beach relating to sanitary, sewer, septic system, and septic tank, effluent pumps, parent systems, providing for conflict and severability, providing for codification, providing for an effective date, requested by the Planning and Development Director, and this is the final hearing on this. And I believe this to be tweaking of prior legislation. Is that correct?
I think that was a Scrivener's error. It's actually requested by Water and Sewer.
Yeah, but if Tim wants to get up here, he's more than welcome to.
The main point, if I may, before Rob says anything, we did take it back and we added some language to make it clear that it is a voluntary program, the STEP system program, unless there's a failure in the system where they have to connect anyway under state laws.
Yes, this is, and I think Wayne mentioned this when we first passed the first ordinance, that most likely we would be coming back since this is a new program and we really didn't have anything to model it after. This is our first time back in front of you. The ordinance changes reflect a couple things. Was to clarify the ownership and that the city is purchasing the equipment, the private homeowner is installing the equipment. However, the ownership remains with the city, therefore it will be tax exempt, so we don't have to pay, charge sales tax for it. So that's a big thing, big plus. The other was to establish through that process a chain of custody through the city to the installer, so that we have now installers that are certified to make installations. They've gone through training programs, both from Orenco and from Roth Manufacturing. There's 7 companies that are now considered installers. We will get a copy of their septic tank contractor's license, their insurance, their workman's comp insurance, just so that when they're coming on city property and moving our equipment, that they're properly insured. And then the third item that is in here is the part about financing. And the financing end went through Cindy. She reviewed it. What we would like to do is people that do take the financing option, instead of trying to bill them monthly, it will be a 1-year bill that will hopefully be able to be rendered through your tax bills that'll show up as a non-ad valorem tax on it. So there'll be 10 payments at that point, and it'll show up on the tax bill as a one-time deal. We haven't gotten the complete logistics of it, but that's the intent. That's how the ordinance is written. We still have to work through the details on that. Other than that, that's really all I have. We did do our first installation, and so I have to leave here and go over and do a startup on it. So it's installed. They wired it in. Now we have to go make sure everything works properly. So.
I hope it does. Public comment? And then we'll have council discussion. No, there's no public comment. Ms. Stern,
I was
floor is yours.
just going to ask Mr. Bolton, I said to please come back, and we'd love to get some feedback on how this first installation goes. So I would welcome you back to council to update us on that.
And really, just to give you a little history, not history, but some comments, when the manufacturers down here, and they never really were involved with septic tank contractors that were so positive in putting these systems in, and that were actually going out and soliciting the work. And their comment was to me, "How'd you get that done?" So I really, it was just part of the whole program, and I think part of the whole lagoon issue, and how there's such a positive attitude towards this program that they've stepped up and they have signs out, and I think they're pushing somewhere around 20 contracts between the different entities that are all involved, and I just see that probably increasing. I have a meeting next week with 20 homeowners in the next area to go to.
So what's the total number? Is it something like 1,400 or something that we're dealing with?
Just under 1,500 total throughout the city. I'd say roughly half, a little more than half on the barrier island.
Okay.
And this first phase was 150 people. Probably the next phase is more than that. I haven't done the property count. But already the word is dwindling south along the beach side, and I'm getting calls from the residents on wanting to have more of a one-on-one meetings than the big group meeting that we had. So we're looking at a meeting next week of 20 residents, and that was all brought forward by them. You know, one person contacted and then said, I got 19 neighbors that would like to hear about it also. So.
Very good.
All right. Further discussion or a motion as you see fit?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Mrs. Bach?
Mr. Old?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Winger?
Yes. That brings us to...
That's a pleasure to do. No, that's really nice to get that one done. That's great.
It's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
4B resolutions, 4B1, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, approving a lease between the City of Vero Beach and the United States Postal Service for certain city-owned real property located at 2050 13th Avenue in Vero Beach, authorizing execution of the lease and related documents by the mayor, providing for an effective date requested by the city manager. Staff comment, City, Mr. O'Connor.
Yes, sir. I think of all the leases the city owns, this is probably ranks up there as probably one of the better ones. We went from $15,000 a year to $120,000 a year. We're retaining the post office. Also in this lease, the post office is responsible for the landscaping outside of the building, so they do accept that responsibility, and in maintaining it. Trying to get the federal government to cut grass is going to be a minor challenge, but I'm sure we will work in that direction. But the lease is for $120,744. It's a 5-year lease, and it goes to $131,000. They have an option after the second year to opt out of this lease and to vacate the building.
A question, Mr. O'Connor. What about ADA modifications in the building?
That will be totally up to the post office. We will not have any jurisdiction over that. That'll be their compliance requirements.
Public comment? Seeing none, I'll close that. Any further comment or council or a resolution?
Motion. Go ahead.
Move for approval.
Second.
This is voice vote or?
Yeah.
No, roll call.
All right, a roll call.
Mr. Old?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Winger?
Yes. Okay, 4B2. A resolution authorizing the City of Vero Beach, Florida, to enter in a joint participation agreement with the State of Florida Department of Transportation to rehabilitate Taxiway C, FDOT number 430941-1-94-01, requested by the Airport Director. Mr. Manager, please.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. This is one piece of the puzzle we're putting together for the funding for our main taxiway Charlie at the airport, and we have only received this one piece. We've got more pieces to put together. The federal government is the big chunk, and we have not received anything in writing on that one yet, and we won't actually do the project at least quickly until we get the federal grant, because that's a big chunk of the money, about 90% of it. Otherwise, we'd have to go back to the state, try to get more money, and it might take longer to get the taxiway done. But it is our main taxiway. Federal government is very supportive, so staff is recommending we accept this offer from the state to assist in paying for that.
And the total cost is $4,571,000, just for the record.
That's correct.
Is there public comment? Seeing none, I close public comment, council comment, or a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mrs. Bach?
Mr. Old?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Winger?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, this is a first reading. The next meeting will be, is it this
April 21st.
21st? This is 5A, and it's a resolution of the City Council of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, adopting an economic development plan and tax incentive for the historic downtown Vero Beach Economic Development Zone, designating the base year assessment role setting for the percentage for calculation of tax increments, specifying the number of years to determine the annual tax increment, setting the initial tax increment year, providing direction to the Economic Development Zones as advisory committee, providing for conflict and severability, and providing for an effective date requested by Planning and Development Director. Staff comment, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Pursuant to Section 2927 of the City Code, the Historic Downtown Vero Beach Economic Zone Advisory Committee is requesting that the attached resolution be scheduled for consideration by the City Council at its 21st meeting. By adopting the resolution, the City Council will be adopting the draft economic development plan prepared by the committee and establishing the tax increment for that district. In the tax increment, 2015 is established as the base year assessment roll. 95% is set as the calculation of the tax increment. 2016 would be the first tax increment year, and the number of fiscal years would be running 10 years from 2016 through 2025. If any revenue is generated by the tax increment, it won't be available until the fall of 2016 at the earliest, and even then, it's not likely there would be much revenue coming forward. These funds can only be used for capital improvements, not operating type of expenses. As the committee has additional work to further refine detailed economic development plan, the resolution also directs the committee to prepare an amended, more detailed economic development plan for City Council consideration by April 1st of next year. The committee worked hard but didn't have the time to prepare the plan with sufficient detail to establish any type of multi-year budget or that. So unless you have specific questions of me, I'd like to turn it over to the chairman of that committee, Terry Torres, and just give you a brief update on where they're at and where they propose to go and answer any of the questions you have.
Terry, if you don't mind, let me address something. Mr. Dagg had called me that there is a trust fund, but it's just a mechanism to hold the money, and so it has no implications other than that accounts where this money will go into. The City Council still has the authority to control the expenditures of that. Example, the commission could come to the City Council and say, we want to put lights up. The council still has the right to say yes or no. You also have the right, for example, if you decide you want to widen the sidewalks, you have the right to use this money as the City Council. So you're using this commission as an advisory commission, and the term trust fund is nothing other than a mechanism to hold the money.
Mr. Torres, come forward, sir.
Thank you. Can I bring this map up here and just share it with the commission?
Fortunately, we have the easel up here.
Can you just put it on the chair or something?
This is just a map of the boundary of the economic development zone established by the ordinance. And I'd like to begin by addressing the mayor, the council members, city officials, and public citizens. My name is Terry Torres, and I am the chairman of the Economic Development Zone Committee, and we've been charged with the task of developing a plan, an action plan for the economic development zone that you see depicted here in this map today. And just to provide a little history, and I've been involved in this for quite some time, more recently as the chairman of the committee, which has only recently been established, but in the past as a president and a board member of Main Street. And we've been pioneering this, and the history goes back to the City of Vero Beach vision plan, which was done by Gould, Evans and Associates, and some of you may remember that. It was adopted in 2005, I believe it was February, and it actually went into the process back in 2004. And so for me, this is dreaming the impossible dream. The vision plan seeks a community consensus for a future direction for the City of Vero Beach. And they had a number of goals that were part of this plan: the preservation of the community, the vibrant commercial character centers, architectural and site considerations, economic development, and finally the implementation of the plan. And we've been waiting for many, many years for that final phase, the implementation. And we finally have a tool to give us some access to funds to implement capital improvements within this area. The plan went on to further address, do we want the status quo or do we want to enhance the character of the city of Vero Beach? And the goal was always to be one of the state's premier areas and places to live. And I love the recent articles that I've been seeing in USA Today. There was a great article on the city of Vero Beach. Wall Street Journal had another terrific article about the quality of life and touting the quality of life that we're all able to share in this wonderful community. The plan also identified some key commercial districts, only one of which, and there were 5, only one of which is a historic downtown Vero Beach economic development zone. In May of 2012, the council passed an ordinance enabling economic development zones within the city. And this zone that we're proposing, the historic downtown Vero Beach Economic Development Zone, will be the first of these zones, and hopefully there will be others. I'm not going to go into the details because I think Tim has already covered the details of the plan, but it takes, just like it takes a community to raise a child, it takes a community to revitalize the downtown area, and that's exactly what has occurred here. It's been a great effort from the public sector, from the private sector. I thank you for your support. I thank, in particular, Jay Kramer, who's been really an advocate for us, City Manager Jim O'Connor, many members of the public, some of who've had to leave today, and members of this council who have been in on this, some of you from many, many years ago, and have supported us. So we also have a great group of volunteers. Amelia will tell you about that as a former member of Main Street Vero Beach. And we thank all of those many volunteers who have been a part of this and who have invested in their with sweat equity in our downtown plannings and our revitalization, and just supporting the revitalization of the historic downtown Vero Beach Economic Development Zone. I grew up in Miami, and as a child, I always dreamed that I would be able to live in an area surrounded by beautiful hammock land and near the ocean and the beaches, because as a Miamian, we always had that. And today, I'm living that dream. And so I ask this council today to support this ordinance, to pass this ordinance. I know it's the first reading. We're going to have another reading on April 21st, but it's vital to the continued revitalization of the downtown area, and I ask for your support.
Mr. Kramer, do you have comment?
Well, I think Terry forgot one person to thank, and that's Terry himself. This has been a long time in coming, and Terry, you have hung in there, shown an amazing amount of patience, dealt with an awful lot of people that had alternate ideas, and I really want to express a great, sincere appreciation for your effort in keeping this going. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ms. Graves, do you have any comments?
I'm glad to see this happening. I was there for a lot of the different meetings when this was discussed, and all the effort by a lot of members of Main Street and of the community. And, you know, just look at all of the efforts so far and how our downtown has transformed in the past 5 to 6 years, and this is just going to help skyrocket it even further. So it's just a great commitment to our town. So thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment or questions of Mr. Torres? Seeing none, I'll close that. Would one of you, the two of you, like to make the motion?
Well, we got one.
Oh, one. Oh, then your public comment. Come forward, Mr. Jake. By all means. I'm sorry. I like your tie.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor, Council. Ken Daig, 1846 21st Avenue. And thank you, Mr. City Manager, for talking about the economic zone and their trust fund. My other question, when you set this fund up, will it be titled a trust fund? That's one question. My second question, when the monies come into this fund, could private money also be put into that fund, and also grant money? that would come into the fund, a grant, and if there's a match, and out of that fund, they could do matching. And usually it's not a 50-50, we'd like be only a quarter sometimes. So that's my question. Is this going to be set up by itself where it bears interest and it's there? I already know what it's there for infrastructure.
I don't know about the terms of interest in that, but the answer to the question is yes. This ordinance authorized the acceptance of grants, acceptance of contributions from private, and it would all go into the same fund in order to maintain control of those dollars for those specific efforts.
Okay, good. All right, that answers my question. I'm glad that's on record. The other thing, and first of all, I want to say thank you very much to Mr. Torres' committee. I know they worked very hard. I happen to be part of the committee that would help form their committee, and we spent many hours. There was a number of people that came to the table with great ideas, and we're all actually very happy that we finally, with Mr. Torres' help and his committee help, got it to this point. So I know I'm pretty sure you're all going to support it, which I really appreciate. And we ask that the committee will continue to reach out to other people that are interested, the Cultural Arts Council, Vero Heritage, the Downtown Merchants, and the Vero Beach Recreation Department. The other situation that I wanted to talk to you about, since you had something on here about sidewalk situations, in some parts of our city we have old sidewalks, and they have what we call stamps on them. They're like stamps from old concrete companies. There's some stamps there like we found in our neighborhood from Fellsmere. They're pretty cool looking, and we want to make sure that they're saved. And right now, I think in 2 days I'll be standing before another commission asking them to work up some paperwork so the city has them on their books, so when you come through for construction, you don't throw the stamps away. And there's an easy way to mark it, so I wanted you to be aware of that. It's going to be put on, hopefully, later on down the road, that you will agree to allow it to be put on the GPS map. And I think that ends it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Digg. Any further public comment? Yes, Mrs. Digg.
I, too, sat in Deborah Digg, 1846 21st Avenue, on the beginnings of this committee and all the people that were involved and all the interest and all the excitement and all the hopes that it wouldn't die. So I appreciate the fact that it's gotten this far. We've been following the vision process for some time now, so it's nice to see. But I also know things have been going on behind the scenes. So I want to say a big thank you to the staff and to McGarry, because there are things that have been moving that are not always obvious to the public. So, and if that hadn't been happening, we couldn't have even gotten to this point anyway. So, things are coming together nicely, and now the public will be more aware of it. It would help if I put my glasses on so I could see. I just wanted to in understanding the way government works and policy, and when you adopt things, sometimes the public will take it at face value. So if something's in there, they think it becomes like gospel. So I just want to make sure there's a clarity on something so that it doesn't get stuck with the mechanism as this moves forward. And that is, I'm a member of the Vero Heritage Board. And so we just wanted to make sure that there wasn't a location specific, because they have you all have to agree to a plan that they've started. Let me get the title correctly. It's their economic development plan. So that's part of this packet. So I just wanted to make sure that most everyone is in agreement with the idea and the concept of a band shell. We just want to make sure that it's not location specific, and it is titled Heritage Park, which a lot of us are not quite sure if that means Pocahontas Park, but just want to make sure that it's not location specific, so that as this moves forward, all the groups and all that might be affected by this and different associations have more of an input, so it actually is put in the best place for the community.
All right, thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Just a brief comment on the action plan. The action plan, as Tim explained earlier, is a work in progress, and we have till April 1st of 2016 to complete this action plan. And I always say dream big, and it's dreaming the impossible dream. So there are some items on this action plan that may or may not ever be accomplished. But let's have that dream. It's like our dream of traffic calming on State Road 60, which effectively bisects the city. And this council has passed an ordinance to address that, and hopefully we get to implement that sometime in my lifetime. So having said that, it's just part of a dream. There is no plan. There is nothing set in motion for a band shell or a particular location, but it has been part of the dialogue and part of the discussion.
All right, Mr. Kramer, you should have the pleasure of making the motion.
Well, I'll make a motion for approval for a second hearing on April 21st.
Second.
Any further comment? Mrs. Bach?
Mr. Old?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
No.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Winger?
Yes, passes 4-1. All right, city clerk's matters.
I have none.
Okay, city managers matters. You have the forum, Jim.
I sent some information to you. We had another parking committee, which is one of multiples, and unanimously of the people that were there said that they would like to see a parking system placed into Sexton Plaza. The problem, the issue is that Highway 60 goes right into Sexton Plaza, so there's beachgoers that go there. We have made major signage changes. We've put signs on parking spaces and parking lots that we own and trying to direct the traffic. The parking system on Sexton Plaza, I bring it to you for consideration. If it's something you want to pursue, let me know, and myself and the Public Works Department will bring back a proposal of some type to you. But I know about a year ago, and this is what I told the committee, we went down the parking system business before, and it was not a pleasant experience had by all. So we're looking for the depth of how far you want to entertain this.
I don't want to entertain this at all for myself. It just opens the door to more parking, which I don't want. We've also taken action as far as the 3-hour limit, and you're also discussing a possible shuttle, which hasn't come to culmination. Even if I would back this, which I never would, it's too soon. Let's see where we are, and we're going into the summer. So that's my view. I don't want to do it.
My concern with this issue is that we seem to always have a different group of characters or a different group of participants involved, and if we were ever to seriously consider doing a parking, I would want to have a weighted majority of not only the business owners, but the landowners in the area as well. I do believe with continued success, we are looking at having more parking flood into our residential areas and cause problems. I do think we need to look at other, what options. I mean, whether it's putting parking in the middle of Cardinal, having other things. But before I would, go into a paid parking system, we'd certainly need to have much more of a consensus.
Mr. Old?
I'm new to this parking issue, but I think if every year is going to be like this year and growing, we're going to end up with a problem. We are, but I don't see a long-term quick solution to this, and I bow to those who have been involved before.
Vice Mayor Kramer?
Quite frankly, I think it kind of destroys some of the charm of Vero Beach. I mean, just the idea of being able to drive down to the beach and not have to worry about having a change full of pocket. You just park and walk the beach. I think it's almost as though you start putting parking systems on the beach, it's almost like an admission that Vero Beach has come of age of being another big city to the south. And I would like to put that off as long as I can. I just don't want to see that.
Ms. Graves?
I agree. I was just having a conversation with the city manager yesterday that the panic that I will have sometimes when I go down to Miami at figuring out where I can park, where I'm going to get fined, how much money I need, where I've got to go. And I'm looking through the list of the people that were present, and like Ms. Turner said, there is not a lot of people that voted. And so I think you have your answer.
I think I will take that direction. And as Ms. Turner said, one of the issues, and we've been meeting, the chief has met most of the time along with Tim in meeting with folks, and the cast does change on a pretty regular basis. and it's who's Oxford gored last, and it just seems like, and it's, for example, we had a unanimous agreement that 3 hours was what we wanted to do. Well, the next meeting, we had somebody show up and said, wait a minute, they're taking up too much time in front of my shop. And so we've sort of had to plow through that. This issue, though, requires a capital investment as well as installation of something that is not going to be as readily available to remove, like a sign or redirection of signs. So I will take that back to the committee that from the city council standpoint, we're not ready right now for a parking system. We think that we need to continue to address parking issues on the beach. And an example, when I was talking to Amelia yesterday, we have a tough time for parking, but it's so much easier than if you went to a university campus somewhere, or if you go downtown West Palm Beach. I mean, the times I go over there, I may have to take one circle around the block, but Cardinal appears to always have parking spaces to me. I mean, it takes a block to walk, but
not a New York City block.
Not a New York City. It's a Vero block. and I realize now the other side of that argument is that we have a lot of seniors and elderly people who shop at some of our stores down there, and they seem to have an issue there with trying to do some of that. But if they're very elderly, obviously handicap parking spaces is another option. So
could we look at, if that is one of our issues, could we look at increasing the number of handicap accessible spots on the beach?
Well, that's one of the issues. It never comes up that they're handicapped. It's just that they're elderly. And being one of those folks, I'm not handicapped. So you put that blue sign up, I can't park there.
Okay.
So I'm not sure that is the solution, but we will take that back as a point of discussion.
I would just like to thank Mr. O'Connor for your infinite patience with all these meetings and, controversy, ideas and trying to find a balance. And I thank you.
Not a problem.
Let's go on to the
interlocal agreement.
Interlocal agreement.
This is the waiving. As the council knows, we wanted to get the restrictions waived off of Dodgertown. For clarification for the public, this doesn't mean that we're going to recover all of our money off of that property, but it will free up those restrictions. This interlocal agreement has several provisions. One is that we are transferring some right-of-way to the county, but in all those cases, those roads are within the city of Vero Beach. So it's really, for example, Aviation Boulevard, 43rd. So it is helping us. We did negotiate with the county that on 43rd and 60, they will make accommodations for the businesses that are located in the city right there at that turn. The only surprise here at the time was the goal line for 2 more years at the airport. I've worked with Eric on that. We don't seem to have any real hesitation on that. As he said, he's taken one for the team. And so we will go. It's hard for him to give up space without somebody paying rent, but for 2 more years we can do that and hopefully accommodate their issues. Now, this has not been passed by the county commission, as you know, that they voted to send it to or say that they would do that. So now it's got to go back. My experience here is that we've been a lot of back and forth, and there's been a lot of 11th hour changes. So hopefully this is the document.
Who drafted this document?
It was a combination.
Actually, my office, Peggy and myself worked on it, and with the county attorney.
But the county attorney has seen this, right?
Yes. And in fact, you should have in front of you the updated one, the one that's in the agenda package, I believe was a prior version.
Tell him this is not a radio negotiation. If this is what he's wanted, if we go for this is it.
The one you've got should be the version that was approved by the county attorney.
They should approve it, right?
Well, the county commission has not approved it. Hopefully they will, but it has gone in front of their public works director and all the departments that would be impacted, and everyone has signed off on it.
Is it on the agenda for the county commission today?
No, it's supposed to be on their next meeting, I believe.
Next meeting.
Any public comment about this? I'm okay with it. Any council comment? You want to vote?
I have a few questions.
Go ahead.
Please.
By all means.
Per this interlocal, then the bus area is being extended another 2 years because I guess the current contract expires on May the 15th. And this is at $25. How is the FAA approval of this lease?
It's public transportation, so there are exceptions to
Okay.
public transportation, especially free public transportation.
Great, make sure. How comfortable with this, on another 2 years? I mean, we've given them a 2-year lease for supposedly this temporary bus stop, and now they're asking for another 2 years? I mean,
The key is, let's don't ask for anything in the next 2 years.
because
Hopefully
they'll
we'll
nibble
start
on some other
construction,
contract that
with-
has nothing to do with it to get the bus stops or the bus terminal. And just to let the public know that I guess the debt payment for the city on this property is $6.5 million, and it costs the city about $700,000 a year in annual interest payments. So it was one of the things.
We'll never be able to part with it for any $6.5 million.
No, but at least if we can diminish the $700,000
We agree.
annual cost, I think we're all. I just try to let the public know why we're even going through this exercise and making these concessions.
Okay, any further comments? We should probably.
You need to vote on it. Yes, sir.
Motion for approval?
Second.
Voice vote okay on this?
Yeah.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It passes 5-0. Jim, I have a larger matter, but I'll use a smaller matter. It involves finances. I personally don't think you have all the direction you need to put a budget together. And I'll give you one example. I personally, which is just me, don't think that the 7% in the defined contribution is adequate. I personally would like to see it 9% and it be 9% uniformly. Now, I bring this up because if there are other matters of this ilk, you've got to know that to put a budget together. And Tammy and I talked yesterday. I mean, we could have a special call, or we could go through them today. I'm happy to go through them today. But something like that makes a difference. It makes $250,000 difference or something.
Mr. Mayor, what we would like is to have a workshop on May the 21st. And what we have asked the department directors to do is especially primarily on general fund, project out 5 years with emphasis on the first 2 years, because that's something we can manageably control, I think. But they're going to put in there the things they feel like that are necessary in order to maintain their level of service and also meet some of the expectations that the city council has indicated that they want. For example, no loss of police officers. The lifeguard hours may be extended. We're not, that's something you'll do, but it happened last year. So those type of little caveats we will put in and have cost factors. There's no question there's going to be a delta between what our revenues are and what our proposed expenditures. Yeah. And then that'll give you all something to sort of chew on, but it will give us direction going forward. And so we hope to be able to do that. And if it's agreeable to the council on the May the 21st, would be an appropriate date for us to make that presentation. But, we're going to do things. For example, I am proposing that we have a pay increase for employees. We've had one pay increase over the last 6 years. That was 3%. This will be going into our 7th year. I feel like that we need to have a compensation adjustment there. We will also be looking at, for example, this bus line for the downtown, and that's a very, very small number. But those type of things, as you all make comments, and if there's something that it comes up that we just absolutely need to do, the bus system out on the beach is one of those that we're still debating. And we have talked to Go Line and sort of got that number in there. And what my commitment is that I would recommend to the city council, if in fact that $40,000, which is what they wanted, we would do a 10% match, and that the businesses would have to do the 90% in order to make it work. So we are looking at that, and they all know that has to come back to the city council for approval and that kind of stuff. But just to let you know about the numbers we're talking about. But again, it's another one of those projects that are out there that we are discussing.
Don't we have OPED trust fund too, or fund?
OPED, yes, and we'll be doing the OPED trust fund, which is also another number that will go in there, and then the contributions to sort of retire our defined benefit and go in and transfer into our defined contribution.
Yeah, talking about that one, the thing that always has bugged me about the defined benefit is the assumption that we can have a return of 7.75% year after year. It did actually happen one year, last year, but it never happens, and that's why we've gotten deeper and deeper in the hole. So, I mean, what do we do about that? I mean, we still have to fund the $30+ million.
You're really not going to do anything. I mean, the bottom line is you got to fund it no matter if it's 1% or if it's 12%. I mean, the fact is you will be told by what our contributions will be in order to maintain the stability, which we have always done. The city has not missed one of those payments, and when the actuary says it's $4 million, we write a check for $4 million. So we anticipate that going forward in order to meet that obligation. So that'll be a part of the exercise that we will have to go through. But that's going to be a sustainable cost probably for the next 12 to 15, maybe 20 years.
The reason we've continued to get a hole is, maybe at one point in time, 7.75 made sense. And I was the finance commissioner 5 years ago. It didn't make sense then. I mean, there was a day that it probably did make sense, but it doesn't make sense anymore.
The fact of the matter is that we have made it in the last couple of years, and again, coming back, whether it's 5% or 7%, it's the contribution. Please come on up, Cindy. And it's another one of those numbers that is an obligation of the city, no matter what the number is.
Yeah, I accept that. It's just.
It does with the freeze of the pension plan. It does have to change. Well, one of the things that Rocky Joyner has told us about that freeze is that because now that it's a closed plan, you have to change your investment strategy and lower your return assumption because you have no new funds going into the plan. And so that's something that the pension committee will be looking at over the next year when we talk about the impact of the freeze, and you'll get some data from Rocky on that. So we do have to actually address that as part of the freeze because it naturally lowers when you make a closed plan, and you have to make your investments more conservative to be more sure that your money will last until the last pensioner is gone.
Well, I won't like the numbers, but good. It's 5 years too late.
I hate to toot the CAFR horn, but you may have received your CAFR, and beginning with this year, because of GASB 67, there's an interesting piece of information in the notes. The actuaries are required to show us what the effect of a 1% increase or decrease in the assumed investment rate would have as an impact to the amount of unfunded liability in the fund. So it's called a sensitivity analysis. It's in the notes. But I would say, it's been 3 years running that we've had over 10% in returns. Our 5-year number is up over 6%, and our 10-year number is hovering around 6 to 7. So in actuality, over the long haul, which is how we always aim our investments, we're really not that bad relative to the 7.75. So, but we do have to re-examine it.
Yeah, 7.75 has been accepted by the actuary and the state and many other governments, all the rest of it. But over time, Randy will tell you, over time, the difference between 6% and 7.75% adds up to a huge amount of money, which it already has. I mean,
And again, if you look at the CAFR, we're required to show 10 years worth of statistics of our actual earnings and how they compare to our assumptions. And again, in reality, if you look at that last 10-year period, where we really lost it was 2008, and we've been slowly climbing out of that hole. We gained 5% this year almost in our funded position on the general employee pension, and similar amounts on the police and the small fire pensions. So, but certainly we do have to.
Yeah, but we've been putting $3.6 million makeup out of a $20 million budget into it. So yeah, we're climbing out of the hole, but we're paying for it anyway. Let's go back to the subject. May 21st. Is that okay with everybody?
At 9:30 a.m.
We will do that. Appreciate it. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Are there any other questions from Mayor and Council?
I do. Mr. Connor, I guess I just wanted to bring up that I know the county is going forward with recycling in single stream, and I believe that'll be effective in October 1. And since the city utilizes the county services for recycling.
Yes. As a matter of fact, we've worked with the county on distribution through our utility bills, information on the recycling as well as their waste contracts. I personally have experience where single stream has improved the collection almost 30%. And so single stream seems to be an effective way. Whether we're going to meet 70% reduction is another challenge.
Which is the goal for the state, I guess.
That is correct.
The city and the county currently is at 37% on recycling. So by 2020, we have to be at 70%. So hopefully with a single stream, with a container with wheels on it that has a top on it, everyone will be more inclined to participate in recycling.
So, Ms. Turner, to follow up on the recycling, so that's for residential. What are we going to do for our commercial entities?
Believe, and I see that Monty lived, they're doing some commercial for the first time, aren't they, Monty?
Because I see dumpsters with cardboard just stacked miles high that could be, you know, my love of recycling, Monty.
Monty Falls, Director of Public Works, and Councilmember Graves and I have spoken about this several times. There is currently no mandatory commercial recycling. There is the availability of doing it, but it's on a contract basis with the business to the actual hauler. And the benefit inures to the property owner in a tax credit based on the amount of tonnage that's diverted from the landfill. I've downloaded and started reading a couple cities that have those. The city of Gainesville has a commercial recycling ordinance. When I read through that and glean some of it, I'll talk to Himanshu Mehta, my counterpart over at the county, and see if they have any intentions of looking at that commercially. But right now, for this new change will be October 1st, is just for the residential to try to pump up that amount that residences do.
What will be picked up in the city of Vero Beach?
The same thing you pick up now. It'll just be easier. Now you have two bins that you have to separate plastics and glass in one and paper products in another. You can put all that into one container with the lid on it and roll it down to the street with the wheels.
But the garbage is still separate.
Our garbage will still be picked up just like we do now, twice a week with our own forces.
And then your recycling bins, I believe I've been told that on the lid, inside lid of these bins, that it will tell you, what you can put in there. So, many people, there may be things that you can be recycling that you're not aware of, and it's give a nice reminder there.
And my understanding is the new carts will be delivered for startup October 1st. So for some period of time, we may have both at our homes, but we'll have the new ones, and then we'll, I guess, get instructions of how they'll pick the old ones up.
Yeah, do they recycle the old ones?
What's participation now?
Countywide, it's about 37. Is what they told us, 37%.
Yeah. What about city, or you don't know?
I don't think they have broken that out.
Okay. No.
I would guess that the cities is just guessing because we do have mandatory collection. I would guess it to be a little higher because people are accustomed to taking their garbage and having someone collect it.
Yeah. Also, there are going to be 3 different container sizes, so that hopefully will make accommodations for some folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further things of Mr. Connor? Seeing none, City Attorney?
Nothing else from me unless you have something for me.
All right, that moves us to 10 then, I believe. There's no old or new business. Individual council matters, I'll pass.
I've just got, in the interest of time, just one thing. I'm going to follow up on our last meeting we had. I was going to have Paul Grittenbast come back and do a presentation of the master plan, and I've got him scheduled for the next meeting on the 21st to come and give our presentation on that again.
Great.
That's all. Go ahead.
Thanks. Just wanted to recognize a local manufacturer that was named Manufacturer of the Year, our Aluma Towers here in Vero Beach. So I thought, we never think of Vero Beach as having much manufacturer industry or whatever, but it's wonderful to have this local firm recognized. Kind of an update on olive board, which continues to pose a huge threat to our community, but all along the coastline. The county has filed a suit to try to stop the private bond issuance of olive board. In federal regulations, prior to them being able to issue these private bonds, they have to complete the environmental impact statement, which has been grossly inadequate per their own government standards. So we wish the county at least some success with that suit. There is a meeting tomorrow with the Florida Development of the Finance Corporation, and they're convening to discuss the All Aboard Florida's private activity bonds. Asking everyone to please express your concerns about these projects. I would ask our city clerk to please put the members' contact, the telephone numbers, and their email addresses up on our website so that everyone who has this opposition to the trains destroying our community to please get involved and do that. Although Easter has passed and we think season's coming to an end, there's still a lot of exciting things happening in Vero Beach. Mark your calendars for Saturday for the Oceanside Business Association Sunset Concert, 5:30 to 8:30. On Wednesday, please join us at Dodgertown to celebrate the Jackie Robinson Day. And on April 18th and 19th, that weekend, is Hibiscus Festival in downtown Vero Beach. Very special weekend. So, see you there.
Good. Ms. Graves?
I'm gonna yield to Mr. Old. Ms. Turner covered quite a few events, so thank you.
Okay. Just to bring you up to date on FMPA, next board meeting of FMPA, they're going to issue an RFP for a management consulting firm, and I wrote I'm not going to be able to be at the meeting. I'm going to listen to it on the by phone, but I won't be able to be at the meeting. So I wrote a letter to the board saying I recommended both McKinsey and Deloitte to be management consultants for FMPA, and I think I sent a copy of the letter around. It basically saying that I think governance and oversight is really what is required in terms of a look that the management consulting firm to do, and I think both of them are very good at it. So that's kind of where we stand with FMPA.
All right. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We're adjourned.